All right, Luke 19, 1 through 10. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not. I know why you chose this. Thanks, brother. Because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to the guest of a sinner? But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay them back 4 times the amount. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost.
Some years ago, my wife became a Sunday school teacher and a children's church leader at First Christian Church in a program that was written by Jerome Berryman called Godly Play. And it was such a dynamic program. It literally taught kids how to be more contemplative, not just in how they receive the stories, but in how they think about God. It was a very impactful program. Parents would come and say, what are you doing to our children? One of the reasons parents would ask that is because godly play, or now as it's known, worship and wonder, happens sort of like a walk to Emmaus in a sequestered environment. That means behind a closed door. The room in which it happens is deemed sacred to the kids. They know that you and I are not invited into that room. It's the holy of holies to them. And it prepares them to have an encounter with God every time they go through that door. This program made such an impact on me that 14 years ago, we locked a room upstairs and we have never used it for anything except a few godly play or worship and wonder stories in 14 years. Last year, 4 people, I can't remember, from our church, was 3, went to a training, at Worship and Wonder training down in Weatherford, and came back ready to help us move Worship and Wonder to the forefront of children's ministries here. Okay? But because it's sequestered and you haven't seen it at work, one of the things that their trainers advised them was to show you this. To do this for leaders of the church and for the congregation. So today, on this last Sunday of Epiphany, see, Wyatt's not been sitting up here just meditating because he's trying to get your attention. This is how he prepares himself. And Tommy is the doorman who will bring the kids when they're ready to him. All we ask you today is just to be a silent audience and to watch prayerfully and see what wonder is when children come to worship. If we're ready, Sean, would you let Tommy know that when he's ready, he can bring the children?
Now, as we all know, we light the candle in this room to ask the Holy Spirit to join us in this sacred place. Now, the chapel has all heard this story already. It was read to them, and I will try to tell it to you this morning. Starts that this is the start of the Lenten season, and all of God's children gather to celebrate the mystery of Easter. And once a year, all God's people go to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover of God leading us across the waters to freedom. Well, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus was to stay in Jericho that night. And the people heard that Jesus was coming. They wanted to see him. So they gathered up along the road. But there was one man that wanted to see Jesus, and his name was Zacchaeus. And he was a shorter man than everybody else. But he couldn't see over the crowd of people who wanted to see Jesus. And when he tried, the crowd would not let him. They would close in together because they did not like Zacchaeus, for he was a tax collector and he took their money. So Zacchaeus came up with an idea, and he climbed a nearby sycamore tree to where he could see Jesus coming down the road. And Jesus walked through the crowd of people, and as he saw Zacchaeus up in the tree, he went to Zacchaeus and asked Zacchaeus, "Come down from the tree. I must stay with you tonight." So Zacchaeus was so excited that he immediately come down from the tree to be with Jesus. And they walked back towards Jericho together. And at that time, the people got upset. Why would Jesus stay with Zacchaeus? He's not a good man. He's a tax collector. He takes more than his share of our money. Well, at that time also, Zacchaeus told Jesus that if he had taken too much from the poor, he would give back twice as much. And Jesus told Zacchaeus that this was wonderful, and he also said that if he took too much, he would give back 4 times as much. So he prayed with Jesus, and Jesus told him that you are right with God, and you are right with the people. So then Jesus turned to the crowd, and he told them, "I am the special Son of God, sent here to save all who are lost." So that made Zacchaeus very happy. And now, as we ask, I wonder how you thought Zacchaeus felt when he was the shortest one in the crowd and no one would let him see Jesus. And then there are other questions. How do you think Zacchaeus felt when he told Jesus that he would give back the money twice as much, 4 times as much if necessary? These are all questions that we should think about and ask ourselves as we understand this story and other stories that we will tell along the way of Jesus. Now, the story was very short and very fast. And in a minute, I'll shut this microphone off, and we will have a quiet little prayer amongst ourselves. And then we will put out our candle, letting the Holy Spirit go to other places to be with other people, as we are now a light upon ourselves in the eyes of Jesus. We will be his light and his word as we go out today amongst our family and friends.
Thank you, Wyatt. We're going to take just a moment to make a response to God in this room. Today, perhaps your response is one of baptism, a confession of faith. And then we would hear your confession now. We would invite you to baptism. Or perhaps today you would join this church by simply bringing your spiritual journey alongside ours. The doors of this church are open.